I wanted to ask a bit about world building because there's no sheltering children in this in this world for the secret of the shadow beast because at the gloaming the monsters come out. There's no way to let them to keep them from that. They're going to know that that's happening, but that also has implications for everything. So, how much time do you spend on world building before you write, while you write, and after you write to make sure you're getting all those implications?
I I spend it just depends on each book. So for Secret of the Shadow Beasts, I'd come up with the basic premise a long time ago, I mean years ago. And so I was poking around with it. Well, the monsters coming to decimate humankind. I was poking around different versions of that. I think I probably spent about a month off and on. Yeah, probably a month off and on. So concentrated maybe a full week, but spread out, coming up with the premise of the world. And then as I wrote it, I discovered things as I went on. So I write for Secret of the Shadow Beasts. I wrote, I think, 3 full rewrites, so complete revisions with the same skeleton of the story, but some major changes, including the ending, just trying out different versions of that. And it was by the final one that I really understood the world and who this government organization was. I had to make the choice too, whether they would be evil or not. And it's very easy to make a government organization, it's very easy to make everything in your book that opposes your protagonist evil, you know, the government organization, the monsters. I don't like to do that. I like to have things have a lot of gray areas. And I thought, in this world we're living in right now, to have so much evil descending upon these kids, that would be really hard for kids to read, and frankly, really hard for me to write. So I made the conscious choice to make this government organization in a very hard place. I mean, they live in this, they're trying to help this world where literal monsters come and destroy people at night. And a lot of people who don't see the monsters, don't see the Umbrai regularly, assume that they're not in their areas, so they go out at night. And the monsters kind of hold back and let them get used to going out. And then after this happens in a town that the kids visit, they descend upon them and they decimate them. The monsters are smart. They lure people into a sense of false safety, and then they go after them. And so this government organization knows that all of this is happening, knows that this is a desperate need, and does their best to protect everyone, to provide all the resources, the antidotes for any exposure to, you know, fur, slime, anything. If you encounter one of the Umbrai, you might get a bit on you and have a terrible rash that could poison you over time if you don't have the antidote. But also making sure that these kids, you know, are taken care of. I have a scene where the director of the organization talks with my protagonist, talks with Nora, because she hasn't been trained and is really concerned that she isn't ready to go out and do this dangerous work, and lets her know that if she's not ready, she doesn't have to. And that's another, you know, important part, because I think the kids are taken care of. They are not sent out to fight these monsters unless they are ready, unless they feel they're ready, unless the director of the organization feels they're ready, unless the head, the senior knight, the oldest kid in the group feels they're ready, and the adult, the legendary, who's in charge of each group, who kind of oversees things, feels they're ready. If anyone in any part of that feels that someone shouldn't go out, they don't, because they don't risk children's lives. And if everything went according to plan, and if everyone remember their training and went out fully rested and so forth as they're supposed to, they wouldn't be in a lot of danger. Because one thing about the Umbrai, they don't go after children quite so quickly. They falter before they go after them. So that falter, that moment in between seeing the child and attacking, gives the child time to defeat them, to attack them. And so they would have a really high success rate. The group that Nora's part of is really good, really athletic, and really just really, really good at destroying monsters. And so they put themselves in a really rough situation where they bring their adult out as a lure, which brings massive numbers of the Umbrai up to them. But they do quite well. They defeat them very well. The director of the institution doesn't like that they do that, though, because that puts them more at risk. But I thought, as I was writing that, they were a bit daring too, and confident, the way that other age of kids gets, you know, just feeling invincible. When in fact they're not, but they are a little bit.
There was a time, maybe, I don't know, 2018, 2019, where I would have thought, no, surely these adults would have read about the evidence of the Umbrai and they would know, don't go out there, the monster, they're real. But then I watched people walking around maskless in grocery stores and everywhere else. Oh, never mind. Was that a factor when you're writing? Are you writing this during the pandemic? When are you writing this?
Funny, because I wrote this before the pandemic. I wrote the first draft in December 2019, and those scenes of the adults going out at night, even when they weren't supposed to, was there in the first draft. And so as I began to revise it while the pandemic was happening, I thought, wow, this is parallel in so many creepy ways. But I described a world that I thought was worse than the one we lived in. And it turned out to be a lot closer to the one we lived in as I continued my revisions, which is really, really stinks. But of course made my wish fulfillment elements, you know, more fulfilling in a way, more pointed and just more, I mean, because I'm modeling how the world should be. I'm modeling respecting kids. Kids will be our future right now. I mean, we all know that kids will be the ones, their imagination and their ability to think critically will define what our future is. And so this government organization embodies that sense. But I model too, you know, treating kids well, supporting kids supporting kids in wherever they are in their lives, just being there for them. That's what this organization tries to do. And of course, taking care of them after their service, taking care of their families. It's a strangely, given the context, it's a strangely warm world. I had a book reviewer who called it, she just said that this was the healthiest squad she had ever read. This group of kids, the healthiest squad, because they really are there for each other. They really support each other in a way that I wish all people could.
Well, I think we need the Umbrai to come into our reality. We've got spider monsters chasing us every night. By God, we're going to come together.
We hope, but maybe not. Oh dear.
What is it? The famous last line, and a good man is hard to find. She'd have been a good woman if there'd been someone there to shoot her every day. That's what we need. We'd be good people if we had spiders threatening us every day. Every day.